Family. Welcome to the Practical Purpose Podcast. It's your boy, Doc. We back. We are back. We're alive. Listen, we're going to talk about something today. We're going to talk about recovery. We're going to talk about recovery. Why do we need to talk about recovery? Because at some point in your life, you're going to need to recover from something. You're going to need to recover from adversity. You're going to need to recover from losing something or losing some things. And contrary to what you're going to hear on some Sundays, when they're going to tell you that you're going to recover it all and you run around and jump, they don't teach you how to recover. So in the dungeon today, what we're going to talk about, we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk about how do I recover from adversity? How do I recover from hardship? How do I recover from mistakes? How do I recover from things that's happened in my life? How do I recover? Remember, I told you before that my word for this year was recovery, right? So if this doesn't help anybody else, I think it's going to help me if nobody else. So we're going to talk about recovery. Go on and share this out, like it, put it on your Facebook pages, send a link out through YouTube, get as many people in as possible, because if you're not the one dealing with recovery, there's somebody you know that's dealing with it right now, and they need to know how to recover. And I got some news that you can use today. Listen, you can recover. See you in a few seconds. How excellent are you? How excellent are you on your level? Like you spend so much time talking about other people at your job. How excellent are you on your level? Are people benefiting from your excellence?
Said 1 2. Said 1 2. Yeah. 1 2. Said 1 2. Yeah. Said 1 2. Said 1 2. We living life with a practical purpose, making every day worth it. Live from the dungeon, we go deeper than the surface, leading with wisdom from the streets to the churches. Searching, what seeking you find? We speaking right to your mind. The sun ain't fighting to shine, no diamonds either. Light hit the Jews and turn fools to believers. Steady making moves and teaching truth to the leaders. Use all these tools just so you can supersede us as real. Said 1 2. Yeah. Said 1 2. Said 1 2. Yeah. Said 1 2. Said 1 2. Yeah. Said 1 2. Said 1 2. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, family, my guy, Mr. Skinny, what's going on, man? Listen, you can recover. You can recover. Listen, I want you to text that to somebody right now that you know that may be struggling to recover from something that has happened in their life. Maybe it's a mistake that they've made. Maybe it's just something that they couldn't see coming. Text it to them right now. You can recover. You can recover. In fact, I want you to make it personal for yourself. I will recover. Right? Whatever it is that you're facing, you can recover, and you will recover if you're willing to put in the work that it takes to recover from adversity. And that's what we're talking about today. Listen, recovery is a return to a normal state of health, mind, and strength. Listen, when you are recovering from something, you're trying to get back to where you were before. And notice that I said we are recovering from things. We're not necessarily recovering from people, because I believe, especially when you start talking about life and death, I believe that you can never fully recover from losing someone that held a special place in your heart. But what we're talking about today is how do I recover from things that have happened to me? Maybe I need to recover joy. Maybe it's peace. Right? Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's health wise. You can and you will recover. Right? So recovery is a return to a normal state of health, mind, and strength. And it's a road. It's not a one-stop shop. It's a road that you have to take to recover. Listen to this quote. Difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. Difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. Listen, I can remember when me and my wife went to Jamaica, right? We've been a couple places, but I remember distinctly when we went to Jamaica, we got off the plane. the airport didn't look like Charlotte Douglas Airport, right? It looked a little different. We walked outside, we got our bags, walked outside the airport, got into a shuttle, and they took us to where we were going. And as we were on the road, we can look to our right and our left, and you saw people walking, you saw abandoned buildings, abandoned schools, mom and pop shops, you saw people in poverty all over the road. And then we pulled up to a gated area where we were staying, and just on the inside of that gate, it looked completely different than where we were coming from. Listen, don't judge the destination based on the road. Let me say that again. Don't judge the destination based off the road. If we had judged where we were going based off of what we saw before we got there, we would have got back on the plane. But you never judge the destination based off the road, because difficult roads, ugly roads, tumultuous roads lead to beautiful places. And so it's critical and it's important for us to understand that if we're going to recover, this is a road. It's a road. It's a process to recovery. Listen to what Tim Stovey says. He says, life is taking you from recovery to discovery. Don't give up on the process. It's a process. Recovery is about progression. It's not about perfection. Right? If you're going to bounce back, if you're going to recover from whatever may have happened in your life, you have to understand that you're not going to do it perfectly. But there's something that's being built in you on that road to recovery. It's not a race, it's a process. And so often we get frustrated with people because we want them to recover so quickly. We want them to recover fast, right? We want them to be back to the normal self that they was at one point. And recovery is a process, right? It's a process. And if you cheat the process, we've said this before, if you cheat that process, you devalue the product. If you cheat the process to recovery, you're going to devalue the product. Listen, recovery is hard. And as we talk about this today, there's going to be some things that I want you to think about in your life, because maybe you're not in a recovery mode, but you have been, or you will be, or you know someone who is, right? So I want to talk about 8 things that you need to do and know as you're on the road to recovery. 8 practical things. We're going to talk about the practical side first. 8 practical things that you need to do, that you need to know if you're on the road to recovering from adversity, if you're on the road to recovery from mistakes that you've made in your life, or whatever the case may be. Here's 8 things that you need to know, or you need to do. Here's the first one. Acceptance. Acceptance. Listen, that doesn't mean that you like what happened to you. It means that you recognize that it is now a part of your reality. Let me say that again. Acceptance does not mean that you like what happened. Acceptance does not mean that you like the mistake that you made. Acceptance does not mean that you like the hardship that came on you, right? But it does mean that you recognize that it is a part of your reality now, right? I can remember when my sister went through having the West Nile virus, right? And you know how critical or how scarce that virus is, right? And I remember when she had to first go through the process of accepting that it happened, right? Not accepting that she liked it, not thinking that this is something that could mold and make me into something better. At that point, she wasn't there, but she had to accept that this is now a part of my reality and I've got to deal with this, right? And if you're going to begin the road to recovery, it begins with accepting that I've got to deal with something that I may not have thought I had to deal with before. Pecan Tan says acceptance, crucial for change itself. Absolutely. Listen, we always say here in the dungeon that you cannot change what you're afraid to acknowledge, right? And so if you're going to recover from whatever it is that you're going through or you have been through, you must understand that you've got to accept that it's a part of your reality. We're going to talk about that when we get a little bit deeper into the spiritual side of things. But so much so in especially in Christian circles, we don't accept what has happened, because if we say it, then we're speaking death unto ourselves, or whatever they say. No, you have to accept that there's an issue, there's a problem, there's something that's taking place. In order for me to recover from it, I've got to accept that it's a part of my reality now. I've got to accept that it's a part of my reality now. So the first thing that I think is critical practically in recovering in your life is acceptance. It's a part of my reality. I got to deal with it. Right. Here's the second thing that I think is so important. And I have 8 practical things today. I'm not saying that there's only 8, right? But I have 8 practical things today that I think will help you. Listen, the second one is this: resilience. Resilience. Listen, the ability to bounce back from hardship is essential. I remember on the blueprint with Mont Berry, we talked about the fact that when you are going through that process of recovering, or whatever that process is for you, the outcome is not as important as the person you're becoming through the process. And he made a point over and over as we talked to say that the process is more important than the outcome. And so if you're going to be resilient in your recovery, you can't cheat that process. That ability to bounce back, what you're becoming as you're recovering, is key to your success once you get to your destination. Right? So you have to accept that there's something there now that's a part of your new reality. You have to be resilient in that acceptance. And you have to understand that there's something you're becoming in the process that's molding, that's making you, that's shaping you into the person that ultimately you were destined to become. Right? Listen, the third one is one I struggle with very much. And my wife gets on me about it. My friends get on me about it a lot. But it's self-compassion. Listen, I have no problem being kind to other people. I have no problem, even in the hardest situations, to be kind. I have no problem. I've had people talk negatively in my line of work. I have people talk negative all the time, say bad things without knowing the full story of what's going on, right? And I have to be kind to them, or I've learned to be kind to them. But I struggle with self-compassion. Being kind to yourself, being graceful to yourself, showing yourself grace and mercy. And sometimes, because your standard for yourself may be so high, because the expectation that you have for yourself is so high, you don't know how to be merciful and gracious to yourself. Right? You're gonna struggle through some things. You're gonna have issues. And you're like, none of us are perfect. And it's easier sometimes for us to apply that to other people than to apply it to ourselves. Because our standard of how we think, of how we do things, of how we operate and function in our lives, we know it. And so it makes it harder for us to have compassion on ourselves. Listen, if you're going to recover, you have to understand that it's not linear. And you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to fall back. You're going to take some steps forward. You're going to take some steps backwards. But it's critical and key that if you're going to continue on that road of difficulty, that you have self-compassion. Right? You have self-compassion. And that's something that I think a lot of well-meaning people struggle with. We struggle with the ability to be kind to ourselves. I think it happens a lot of times. I can only speak for men because we have so much responsibility, right? As the head of our households and fathers and husbands and providers and all of those things, that when we drop the ball in a particular area, we have a difficult time having compassion for ourselves. Now, I do think there's a fine line of having that compassion and changing behavior. There's a fine line there. But I think in order to recover, you have to be merciful, gracious, and compassionate to yourself, right? So number one is to be accepting, to understand that whatever happened is a part of your new reality, and you have to face that. Number two is resilience, learning how to bounce back. Number three is self-compassion, right? And here's a hard one that we talk about in the dungeon on a regular basis. Number four is social support. Listen to this. Vulnerability with the right trusted individuals can provide comfort, perspective, and practical help. There's a word in there that we don't like, and that's vulnerability. Being vulnerable. Now, I'm not saying you be naive. I'm not saying you be stupid or dumb. I'm saying with the trusted individuals, with the right people, you have to be vulnerable. Listen, one thing that I'm learning, and not to jump into the spiritual side of things, is it's important to be vulnerable to people, but it's also important to be vulnerable to God, right? Because he already knows everything. I heard Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell say this: it's no need to sugarcoat your prayers because he already knows. And so that vulnerability can only come in an area where you already have a level of trust with who you're being vulnerable with. Let me say that again. That vulnerability can only come in an area where you have already had trust with the person that you're being vulnerable with. And the problem that many of us have is we're so vulnerable with people that we don't trust. And we end up getting ourselves hurt. We're so vulnerable by untrustworthy people that we end up getting ourselves hurt. PK and Tan says we often look at vulnerability as weakness. Absolutely. And vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is the ability to unveil yourself, right, with people, with God, with entities that are that can help you, but that are trustworthy people, right? They're trustworthy. They're faithful. They're understanding, right? They're going to tell you you're right or you're wrong, even when you don't like it. Vulnerability is a very important aspect to social support. Getting those people around you that are going to help you in that area, right? And we talk about that a lot when it comes to the spiritual things, but not enough when it comes to the circle of people around you that you need to help you, right? Vulnerability is important. So we've got acceptance, we've got resilience, we've got self-compassion, we've got social support. But listen to this one: meaning making. Personal growth happens when we find meaning in adversity. Listen, what is the lesson that's in it? What's the lesson? My brother Brian says that's especially hard for men, talking about vulnerability, because even with people we trust, we don't want to appear to be taken as soft. Yes, sir. Absolutely. We don't want to, as men, be taken as weak or that we're struggling with anything, right? And so that's why it's so important. It's so important that we create an atmosphere in our homes where we can be vulnerable, that we create an atmosphere in our circles where we can be vulnerable, that we create an atmosphere around our children, right? Because most children see their dad as perfect and that we don't struggle with anything. We create that atmosphere of vulnerability where everybody in our circle understands how to be vulnerable. Listen, making meaning. Personal growth happens when we find meaning in adversity. What is the lesson in what I'm facing? There's always a lesson in it. I remember about 2 years now, almost exactly 2 years, when my aunt passed away, and I had to speak at her homegoing, which was very difficult to do. One thing that I said was that she always found a lesson in everything. Listen, she found a way to teach you something in every situation. And when we go through life and we start understanding that life is about us learning more about who God is and about who we are, there is a lesson in everything that we do. In everything we face, in everything that we go through, there is a lesson that can be learned. And on the road to recovery, if you begin to make meaning of what is happening to you, of what you're feeling, of what you're facing, then what tends to happen is you start to understand quicker that there is something that's changing and something I'm becoming in this process. Oftentimes we don't see it until the end. But if we change our perspective to understand how to make meaning of what's happening in our life while it's happening, then that realization comes a little bit quicker, right? So we have acceptance, resilience, self-compassion, social support, meaning making. Watch this one. Perspective, number 6. Challenges are opportunities for growth. Challenges are opportunities for growth. How you see a challenging situation in your life speaks volumes to how you're going to recover from adversity. How you see challenges speaks volumes to how you recover from adversity. Listen, challenges are opportunities for growth. Recovery is hard, but regret is harder. Let me say that again. Recovery is hard, but regret is harder. And you never want to regret not seeing challenges as opportunities. Because when we do that, we miss the lesson. We miss what God may have been trying to do in our life, because we're complaining so much about it being a challenge that we're not understanding that it is an opportunity for us to grow in our knowledge of who we are, of who He is, and who those who are around us are. Challenges are opportunities for growth. Sam says we need to make sure the lessons are not wasted by finding the meaning. Listen, that's why I love, I've mentioned this movie plenty of times. I know my brother loves it. Karate Kid. Man, Karate Kid is just a movie about learning lessons in everything. I mean, he's painting the fence, right? He's washing the car, he's waxing the car. And then when he gets into combat, Mr. Miyagi shows him how what he was learning to do in those situations were preparing him for where he was going. But in those moments when he was waxing the car and painting the fence, he couldn't see that. And so it's important that we understand the power of making meaning and perspective, right? And our perspective will never be God's perspective, right? I think my brother Wilmot says, God, we see to the corner and He sees around the corner, right? And so it's important for us to understand that as you're trying to recover, challenges have to become opportunities for growth. That's challenges in your health. That's challenges mentally, challenges spiritually. All of those things are opportunities for you to grow in that area, right? So we've got acceptance, resilience, self-compassion, social support, making meaning or meaning making, perspective. We have number 7, self-care. Self-care is something that's thrown around a whole lot now. Self-care, maintaining physical and emotional well-being. Listen, self-care is important in your life. Taking care of you, right? Not just physically, right? Not just in the area of relaxing, but what are things that's going to help you realize the stage of life that you may be in and how you can recover from what you lost, or how you can recover from adversity. Self-care is critical because when your mind is not free to think the way that you should think, you won't see those challenges as opportunities because you're so busy thinking about the negativity of what's going on. Self-care helps you correct that. It helps renew your mind, right? So as we work hard and as we do so many things in our lives, you have to remember, that's my water bottle. You have to remember to be careful that you don't run yourself in the ground so that you're not mentally stable to handle life, because life is never going to stop life, right? Things are never going to stop happening just because you're not ready for them to happen. You have to be mentally prepared to deal with those things. Listen, this is an old Japanese saying. It says, he who has health has hope. He who has hope has everything. Let me say that again. He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything. Okay? So we have acceptance, resilience, self-compassion, social support, meaning making. I know I'm going quickly. Perspective and self-care. But here's the last practical thing you need in your life on the road to recovering from whatever it is that you're going through. You need hope. You need hope. Maintain a sense of hope. If you remember back in 2008, when right after, a few years after 9/11 happened in 2001, and the country was still kind of railing, and people were still struggling, and people just couldn't really seem to understand that someone would actually attack us or whatever. In about 2007, 2006, a man came on the scene named Barack Obama, and we were captivated by Obama. We were captivated because he was a speaker, he was an orator, he knew how to get your attention. And he got the nation's attention by talking about hope. He kept talking about hope. And people couldn't understand why they were gravitating to him. It wasn't necessarily because he was black or he was younger. It was because his message of hope resonates with people. People resonate with the idea that there is something better than what I'm experiencing now. Hope is a confident expectation based on what you believe. Hope is a confident expectation based on what you believe. As you're recovering from adversity, if you don't have hope, you're not going to continue down the road that it takes to get to that destination. If you don't have hope, if you don't believe that at some point you will recover, if you don't believe that, you're going to struggle to go where you're trying to go. Listen, hope is a confident expectation based on what you believe. So the eight things, the eight aspects of recovery practically that we talked about that you need to know is acceptance. That doesn't mean you like what happened. It means that you accept the fact that it is a part of your new reality, right? Resilience, the ability to bounce back, understanding that I'm becoming something in this process, and what I am becoming is going to make me suitable for the destination. What I am becoming in the process is going to make me what I should be when I get to where I'm going. The third one was self-compassion, being kind to yourself, being gracious, being merciful to yourself, not being so hard on yourself, right? And again, there's a fine line there, but that should lead to a change of behavior. Here's the fourth thing: social support, being vulnerable to the right people. Being vulnerable to the people that can help you become what you're trying to become, to get back to what you lost or to retrieve what you lost. Meaning making, perspective, self-care, and hope. All right. So those 8 things are important practically as you're on the road to recovery. But here on the Practical Purpose Podcast, what we like to do is we talk about it practically. We talk about how you can apply this practically in your life. But now let's look at a spiritual application, because although you may have the practical tools to do it, if you don't have a spiritual foundation, you're going to really struggle, because you need something solid that's going to be there all the time. Right? You need something solid. And so here in the dungeon, we believe that solid foundation is the scriptures. Right? So we're going to look at a story in the Bible that if you've been in church more than 3 years, you've heard about the two blind men that are crying out to Jesus to help them. And we're going to talk about three aspects, three things that they did, or three things that can relate to our lives spiritually in order for us to recover from whatever we lost or whatever adversity we've been through. Right? And so these two blind men they're on the street, they're crying out to God, to Jesus, asking for his help. People are trying to ask them to be quiet. They continue to cry out. Jesus turns around. He's moved with compassion. He heals them. They recover their sight. They follow him. That's the gist of the story. But let's read it, because it's important that you don't take my word for it. Like LeVar Burton used to say, let's read it. It's in Matthew 20, 30 through 34. It says this: "And behold, there were two blind men sitting by the roadside. And when they heard that Jesus was passing by, they cried out, 'Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David.'" That's key right there, and we'll come back to that. "The crowd rebuked them, telling them to be silent, but they cried out all the more, 'Lord, have mercy on us, Son of David.'" Verse number 32. "And stopping, Jesus called them and said, 'What do you want me to do for you?' They said to him, 'Lord, let our eyes be opened.' And Jesus, in pity, touched their eyes, and immediately they recovered their sight, and they followed him." All right, so we see in the text a lot of different things happening, a lot of different things going on. But I want to bring to your attention three things that will help you on the road to recovery that we see here in the text. Here's the first point: you need to seek the right help. Remember, we talked about social support. You need to seek the right help. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of people around them at the time, but they weren't crying out to them. They cried out to the person that they believed could help them in their current predicament and situation. When you're on the road to recovery, you need to reach out to the people that you know can help you get to where you're trying to go. Listen, they made a critical statement here. They said, they cried out to Jesus and they called him the Son of David. That's powerful, because the Son of David is a messianic term. It means that they knew that the person that they were crying out to had the ability as their Messiah, as their Savior, to save them from whatever they were facing. And it's important that you understand this point. You absolutely need help to recover. Mr. Brown, you absolutely need help to recover. You can't recover on your own. You need horizontal help and you need vertical help. You need people around you that can help you. And you need a relationship with God that will allow you to bounce back from any type of adversity that you face. You need help to recover. We have to stop feeling like we're in this alone. We're recovering on our own. We're bouncing back from our adversity on our own. We were never created to be alone in anything that we're going through. You need help. Listen to this. You could be in the wrong position because you won't get the right help. Let me say that again. You could be in the wrong position because you won't get the right help. You've got to throw your ego aside if you're going to recover. If you're gonna bounce back from what it is that you're facing, you've went through, that's happened to you, the mistake that you've made, you have to put your ego aside and say, I'm gonna seek the right help. The right help can move you from rock bottom to recovery. And oftentimes the first step is the hardest step. And the first step is getting the right help. Getting the right help, getting the right people around you, saying the right prayer, talking to God, talking to the right God, some of us, that's going to help us get to where we're going. These two blind men knew exactly who to call. They sought the right help, and they moved him because they called him by his messianic name, his messianic title. They called him the Son of David, meaning they knew who he was, not just his name. They knew who he was. And so it's critical, it's important that you seek the right help. Here's the second point. It says that they cried out, and the crowd demanded their silence, but they kept crying out. Here's the second point. You have to be persistent in your pursuit to recover. You have to be persistent in your pursuit to recover. And see what most pastors or preachers will say is they'll sit right there and say, you know what, you need to cry out loud. Cry out loud and spare not. And they'll say all of those things, and that text about sparing not has nothing to do with crying out for something. All right, crying out loud, the volume of your cry does not indicate the sincerity of your heart. Let me say that again. The volume of your cry does not indicate the sincerity of your heart. It wasn't how loud they were crying that got Jesus' attention. It was the sincerity of their heart. And so you can put on with a lot of folk. You can make it look like everything's okay. You can make it look like you're doing all the right things, right? But the sincerity of your heart is what God ultimately sees, and he knows. Eliminate distractions that hinder you from being persistent. Listen, they were in the right place, but they still had distractions that was hindering them from getting what they needed at that moment. If you're going to recover from whatever you're going through, from whatever adversity you're facing, you've got to eliminate the distractions that's hindering you from getting where you need to go. That's important. You need to eliminate those distractions. Listen, this point is critical here. You can be in the right place at the right time and still face adversity. You can be at the right place. I ain't preaching, man. You can be at the right place at the right time and still face adversity. See, sometimes we think that the right place at the right time means everything is going to be peaceful. It means that everything is going to work perfectly in our favor in that moment. It means that everything is going to look serene. But you can be at the right place at the right time and still face adversity. They were in the perfect place to get to where they were trying to go, but there was so much adversity around them. But they still were in the right place. And so you can't judge sometimes your placement by what you see around you. Because in fact, the fact that there is adversity there may indicate that you are in the right place. Listen, you can be in the right place at the right time and still face adversity. Well-meaning people who don't understand your need for recovery can distract you. Well-meaning people who don't see your need for recovery can distract you. Listen, we have no indication in the text that the people that were around Jesus meant any harm to the two blind men. There's no indication of that. There's no indication that they were trying to harm them. What we do know is they did not understand the sincerity of the heart of those two blind men. They were probably trying to just protect Jesus. They may have meant well, and there are some people in your life that mean well, right? But because they don't understand what you need in this season, they are distractions to you. Good people, well-meaning people, distractions. And you have to have the ability, which is not the word I'm looking for, I just can't find it. You got to have the discernment, there it is, to know who needs to be close in this season and who doesn't need to be. Listen, you remember when Jesus went up on the mountain of transfiguration? He had 12 disciples. He didn't take 12 up there. Right? Who did he take? Peter, James, and John. He took his 3 closest disciples. He took them somewhere else for that season. See, you have to know when you can take people with you and who are the people that need to go. And in certain seasons, that didn't mean the other 9 disciples weren't good people or wasn't there to help Jesus. Don't mean that. It just means that in that season, they weren't the people that he needed up on the mountain with him. He wasn't ready to reveal himself on that level to those people. And so well-meaning people can be distractions if they don't understand your need for recovery. Sam says sometimes the adversity is because you are in the right place, right at the right time. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir. So the first thing that we see in the text is they sought the right help. They cried out to Jesus, Son of David, his messianic title. They appealed to his ability to save, right? The second thing is they were persistent in their pursuit. The crowd demanded their silence, but they kept crying anyway. They were persistent. And you know, that's crazy. Let me park there for a second. We talked about this on the blueprint with Wilmot. You have to be persistent. You know, you have to. You can break through any barrier in your life, any adversity with persistence. You can break through even if you don't see something happening every day. Persistence. We talked about going to the gym and working out, and the first couple of times you may not see anything. You may feel a little soreness, but you don't see anything. But as you are persistent in your pursuit of that, you start seeing a difference. Same way financially. If you're trying to have a certain amount of money, a goal to have a certain amount of money by a certain amount of time, if you daily, weekly put aside a certain amount and you're persistent and consistent in doing those things, you don't allow the distractions or the adversity to stop you from reaching that goal, you're going to then see the fruit of that, right? And they saw it here. Listen, so number 1 was they sought the right help, and I'm done. Number 2, they were persistent in their pursuit. Number 3, they knew exactly what they wanted. They knew, and that takes some reflection now. That takes some reflection in our lives. Now, of course, they were blind, so it didn't take much reflection for them to know what they wanted, right? But in our lives, as we're recovering from certain things, sometimes you've got to sit back and reflect in your time alone and say, what is it that I really want? I'm praying for this, that, and the third. I'm talking to God about this, that, and the third. I'm talking to people about this, that, and the third. But what is it that I really want? Jesus asked them a specific question. What do you want me to do? He asked a specific question. Listen to this. God asks us questions to give us information, not to get information that he doesn't know. Let me say that again. God asks us questions to give us information, not to get information that he does not already know. He was not asking them, what do you want, as if he didn't already know that. But by them stating exactly what they wanted and him doing exactly what they asked, they now had a new revelation of who he was. Right? It's one thing. See, they called him Son of David because that was his messianic title. Right? But they didn't know him to be that. I remember growing up in church, the old people would say this all the time, and they would say, you don't know God is a healer until you get sick. And I'd be like, nah, that ain't true, because I can look at this person and see that they got healed. That's not what the old people were saying. See, sometimes old people say stuff that's so powerful. You don't have an experiential knowledge of God being a healer until he heals you. You don't have that experiential knowledge until he heals you. And then you can really say he's a healer. See, they called him his messianic name, his messianic title, because they knew he was a savior, but they didn't know him to be the savior through experience until he healed them. And so he asked them a question, and he asked that question to help them, not to help him. When you are sure, you become bold in your pursuit. When you're sure what you want, you become bold in your pursuit. Listen, when you know exactly what it is that you want out of this situation, what is it that you want to recover from? What is it that you need back? Maybe it's peace, maybe it's joy, whatever it is that you need to recover again. When you are sure that that's what you need and that's what you want, you become bold in your pursuit of it. You become bold in your pursuit. Listen, the recovery of their sight led to a changed way of life. The recovery of their sight. And I like the term that it used in the text. I like the term that it used at the end. It says, and Jesus in pity touched their eyes, and immediately they recovered their sight. That means it was something they had before. And they lost it, and they recovered what it was that they lost. And it led them to a change way of life. Listen, when you're on that road to recovery, and we're going to wrap this up. When you're on that road to recovery, it's going to lead, and it should lead, to a changed way of life. If it doesn't lead to a changed way of life, then you've got to re-examine what you really want. All right. And once you get it, it should lead you to be able to help other people recover from what they may be facing. Listen, recovery is not for people who need it. It's for people who want it. Let me say that again. Recovery is not for people who need it. It's for people who want it. You've got to want it. You've got to go after it. Right? Whatever it is that you lost, whatever it is that was taken from you, whatever it is that life caused you to stray away from, whatever mistake that you made that caused a rift in whatever relationship or whatever that might be, you have to go after it. It's not for people who need it. It's for people who want it. Here's your homework. Here's your closure. I got a few things for you for your homework. I want you to think about, if you're not in this stage in your life, you're not in a stage that you need to recover from things, but you know someone who is. What I want you to do is I want you to text that person at some point this week and just tell them you can recover. You can recover your joy. You can recover your love. You can recover your peace. You can recover it, but it's going to take you to do a few things. You're going to have to understand how to seek the right help, how to be persistent in your pursuit, and to know exactly what you want. You got to be vulnerable. You got to talk to people. You got to talk to God about what it is. Are you stagnant? Are you taking steps towards recovery? Ask yourself these questions. If you're the person that needs recovery, that needs to recover from whatever happened in your life, whatever hardships you face, are you taking the necessary steps to recover? Or are you trying to conceal what you feel? Are you trying to conceal the need that you have, right? You got to start taking some steps in the right direction in order to recover. Listen, I want you to share this out to as many people as you can. I want you to hit the like button if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, share it, take the link, send it out to as many people as you possibly can send it out to that you think this will help or it will bless, right? Like I said, if it don't bless anybody, it's me, because my word for 2025 is recovery. I need to recover some things that were lost, right? And I need to take the proper steps to recover from whatever that was lost. Listen, share this out with as many people as you can. Appreciate y'all coming to the dungeon. Be blessed. Work on yourself. Spend time reflecting on what it is that you need to do to become a better version of yourself and the version that God wants for you to be. Listen, Dr. Williams signing out of the dungeon. Y'all take care.